Hi guys. So let's talk about making websites for clients virtually. So if you are a web developer, for the most part, you are going to find yourself talking to, especially if you start out with your own company. Some people don't like the lifestyle of being a part of a bigger company or having a boss. They want to be, you want to be your own boss, and that's absolutely fine. It's uh, it's a uh, it's a great way of living your life if you can, if that's your thing. And so I would want to share a few tips and tricks that I picked up from doing my own work towards doing my own consultancies work and so forth. And I'm not going to talk so much about marketing yourself, because it's a big part of running your own IT company, like being able to to find clients and so forth. I can say however, is that there are actually, if you want to work small, like with smaller business owners, that's usually where all that matters. If you are a one-person company and you want to be a consultant, it's actually very, very common that the large companies and large corporations actually prefer to hire you that way. I've actually had talks with really big companies here in Sweden that wanted to, they asked me if I was interested to become a consultant for them. And the reason why the consultant life is more popular, or consultants are more popular to the really large companies, is because they usually have these projects where, unfortunately, it's not unfortunate, it's really lucky that that's the case. So it's very difficult it's difficult for big companies to fire and move people around on a project basis if you're in Sweden. And so what they do is that they hire consultants, because consultants they can fire anyway. It's very low risk for them when it comes to managing people. So being a consultant is absolutely a feasible way of making a living. So one of the things that I argue is very important when you start talking to clients, you have your first client and so forth, is to realize, especially and this goes for talking to small business owners, they are not technical people for the most part. They have absolutely no understanding of basically what things cost, what in terms of time and money, and what they're asking for, the scope of things. So it's on you to be the type of people person. I actually argue that if you are working towards small business owners, the requirements for you at a social level, being very charismatic and more of an entrepreneur, if you will, is actually much higher than if you are in a professional environment, because the pros and the bigger companies, and they have people who know this stuff. They understand the value of the work that you're doing. And it's actually one of the biggest problems in IT and I argue that the perception is that from most people is that what you do is low value. Very few people value software in the way that they value physical products. And that is going to be a problem for you, exactly as it is a problem for artists who want to sell their painting and all this stuff, because people don't realize that the time invested in something is actually the factor that makes it valuable. People's perception of value is very, very odd. Anywho, so that's going to be something you're going to face. And the tips I can give you that has been working very nicely for me when it comes to delivering something that your user or that your client is asking for is to first and foremost try to figure out what it is that they really want, because most of the time they're going to ask you for a lot of stuff and they will not be well prepared and they don't really know exactly what they're looking for. I mean, I've had clients who just basically came in to me and said, Fredrik, I want a website that's very much like Facebook and I want it to look nice. That was the entire pitch. That's all they had. They had nothing else. And so I said, okay, that I want you to know, when you say, we have to define some stuff, because when you say to me that you want something that is like Facebook, I want you, if you talk about specifically Facebook, how it looks today, then no, I can't build that in any reasonable amount of time, and you can't afford it, because that's hundreds of millions of dollars to build that. And they kind of go, oh yeah, but I don't mean all of Facebook, I just mean these things, I like these. And like what's happened immediately was that you post like you force them to be more elaborate about what it is that they actually want, and you run that dialogue back and forth until you really get bear down to the very nitty-gritty details of what they actually want, because people think in general terms. Unfortunately, when you are setting up a specification for what's going to be delivered, or you're making a contract and so forth, you have to be specific. I mean, who take lawyers or people or notaries or so forth, like all the who like their business is contracts and so forth. You know, we regular humans might think of them as being a little bit stuffy and like, you know, a little bit know-it-all and all that, but you kind of have to think about it in the terms that that's exactly how they have to work. Because if you ever have a disagreement at, you know, at a legally binding contract, all these details matters. The same thing goes for programming. If you just start when you have like a rough idea of what you're going to build, odds are that you're going to build the wrong thing, and your clients won't like, either they won't want to pay you or they won't like what you produced. So here's my biggest tip for avoiding that. Start by having a really in-depth dialogue. That's the first thing. You need to get down to the like core stuff of what they want you to build. And once you have a good understanding of that, you tell them, all right, can you go and give me 3 different websites that you really like, that are kind of doing some stuff of what you want on your website, and just send those links to me. And then give me 1 or 2 websites, or 3 websites as well, that you don't like. You dislike them for some reason, and send me those as well, and tell me why you don't like them. And when they've done that, because there's 2 things that happens when you do that. First thing is that you force your client to commit. That is very important, because a lot, especially small business owners, they think that they just put in a request and then you're gonna build them something amazing. But with this, you actually make sure that they're interested in making a deal with you. Because trust me, I've had a lot of people who come up to me and ask me to build things, and you know, to me, like, I don't want to work with somebody who just kind of, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to start working out on Monday, and then they never go. Like, they have to be committed to the project. Even if it's not a big project, they have to have some commitment apart from, you know, actually paying you for it. So that's number 1. Do that first. And the second thing you do is that you don't actually, when you have the website, you don't write a single piece of code until you have wireframes. You start by designing things, and this is the next thing. If you work towards small businesses, it is going to save you so much time, so much hassle if you learn design. Learn Sketch or Photoshop or something like that. Produce wireframes, and when your client has said, yeah, this is kind of a nice direction for where I want to go, you make a nice mock-up of the landing page or the art. You basically make the proper artboard. So learn design. It is vital, because that's what's going to make your client fall in love with the project. And when they have seen the artboards and they have verified that, hey, this design is really nice, I like what you've made, then you start coding. Only then, because otherwise, trust me, you will find yourself in a situation where you're building something and either you build the wrong thing, or your client doesn't want to pay you, or you don't really build the thing that you want. And you know, the final step in all this is that once the artboards have been verified, make sure that you either get half of the payment, or you know, make sure that you have a legally binding contract to the stuff that is on the artboard. Because the next thing happens very often as well, because the people perceive what you do as something magical and not that costly. They can't understand that what you do is the same thing as building a car. They just don't get it. They will start doing feature crawling. They will start wanting to change things, and they want to do more and more stuff. And maybe you are the type of person who wants to do that, and you know, that's fine. You will maybe, you know, be very accommodating, and you should be, absolutely. But the problem comes when they want to change stuff and they don't realize that, hey, you know, you're actually in breach of our agreement. Like, you're adding stuff now that may or may not affect the way that your work is going to progress, because you maybe have built maybe you built something and now they want to change it, and all of a sudden you have to undo that work, and you know, the cost of the project actually goes further, and you have to make sure that they are aware of that. So it's two things. Either you have to make sure that you have a legally binding, like you got paid or something up front, so that if they want to change things about the artworks, they either understand that that's going to cost more, or they're going to understand that, hey, that's not the original agreement. And this is not being mean, this is just, this is how business works. And yeah, those are my tips. It's been working very well, and I've had it took me a while to figure these things out, so hopefully it was useful to you, and hopefully you will have great success in your ventures.